The first race for IMSA in 2024 is now complete, and it's clear that Daytona never disappoints. There were a lot of things that happened in this 24-hour endurance race, including new cars out on track, incredible racing, some crashes, and of course the epic race-long battle between Porsche and Cadillac for the race lead. So it's time for me to recap the Rolex 24 at Daytona in 2024. Like all major endurance races, the event was set up with qualifying sessions. Pipo Derani obliterated the track record in the number 31 Cadillac to stick it on pole in GTP. Ben Keating was on pole with his brand new team United Autosports in LMP2. Sebastian Priaulx put Rexy, AO Racing's Porsche, on pole position in the GTD Pro class. And finally, Parker Thompson put the number 12 Lexus from Vasser Sullivan Racing on pole position in the GTD class. The Rolex 24 began with Derani leading the prototype field away in the Whelen Engineering Cadillac. But while Derani got a great start, so did Felipe Nasr in the third place Porsche. The Brazilian racer got past Sebastian Bourdais in the 01 Cadillac and started to challenge Derani in the 31 Cadillac. And the interesting fact about this battle at the start between the Porsche and Cadillac is that it would turn into an epic race-long battle for the overall lead. Meanwhile, it was a good getaway for the GT classes, thankfully no major incidents. Ben Barnico in the number 14 Lexus was able to get past Michael Christensen in the number 77 AO Racing Porsche, and get that number 14 Lexus to the front of the GT pack. The race progressed nicely, and at least for now, it became clear that Cadillac had the advantage. Porsche was in the battle for the overall lead, but it seemed those Cadillac V Series R were going really well in these conditions of the daytime hours. And as for the entries from BMW or Acura, I think the cars were very competitive, but weren't on the same level compared to the Cadillac V Series Rs or the factory Penske Porsches. Our first crash happened at the Le Mans chicane when Misha Goikhberg in the number 78 Forte Racing Lamborghini spun off and hit the barrier. This was a heavy impact with the wall for the Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo, and I'm thankful that the driver Misha Goikhberg was able to climb out of the car unhurt. Later on, there was another incident involving the class leader in GTD Pro. This incident happened at the second turn where the pit lane exits. The number 20 high-class racing entry and number 33 Shawncreech Motorsport LMP2 made contact, resulting in the high-class car being spun around. The number 14 Vasser Sullivan Lexus, driven by WEC champion Mike Conway at the time, had literally nowhere to go to avoid this incident. And unfortunately, that car's chances of taking the win in the Pro class were over after that contact. The race progressed with Cadillac still leading overall in GTP. The number 31 Cadillac and 01 Cadillac battled for position, and both cars took turns at leading the overall event. Meanwhile, the Penske Porsches weren't far behind. Then a full course yellow was brought out once again because of a massive shunt for Stephen Thomas in the number 11 TDS Racing LMP2. The car spun off on the exit of the Le Mans chicane into the banking wall of the speedway. Thankfully, the driver, Stephen Thomas, was okay, but the TDS Racing crew would unfortunately have to retire their LMP2 entry after this crash. The race continued, and I just want to quickly document some incredible racing around 3 hours into this event. This is what I call endurance racing at its finest. You have battles in all 4 categories happening on the same part of tarmac at the exact same time. All the drivers involved in this multi-class racing battle showed some respect to each other. And for an endurance racing fan's perspective, this was an incredible battle to watch. As night descended on the Daytona International Speedway, the Porsche 963s came alive during this point. We had, of course, seen this before, where the Porsche 963s were very competitive in the cooler track conditions at night. An example of this was when the Porsches were very quick in the nighttime hours of Daytona last year. Matt Campbell in the number 7 entry was now right on the back of the number 31 Cadillac and made a move into turn 1, going round the outside and taking the lead for Porsche Penske at Daytona. But soon we got our first major issue in the GTP category. Wayne Taylor Racing's Philippe Albuquerque stopped the number 10 Konica Minolta Acura just at the exit of the International Horseshoe, which ultimately took them out of contention for the race victory. This issue was devastating for Wayne Taylor Racing, as the 10 car was in a position to potentially fight for the overall victory. And unfortunately, this wouldn't be the last stop for an Acura GTP car at this event, as the new number 40 Wayne Taylor Racing car, driven by Louis Delatraz at the time, stopped on the entrance to the banking of the Daytona International Speedway. Thankfully, Delatraz got the number 40 car going again, but overall, Wayne Taylor Racing and Acura just weren't having a good time at Daytona this year. Now, keeping on the topic of GTP, we haven't talked a lot about the BMW M Hybrid V8s. BMW definitely made some improvements from last year's event. They were very competitive during this race and could even challenge for overall victory. While BMW wasn't as competitive compared to the likes of Porsche or Cadillac, they still proved they could challenge them, especially in the hours at night. The RLL entries even led a few laps overall. However, later on, the BMWs encountered reliability issues. Both cars suffered some sort of mechanical problem and were forced several laps down from the overall leaders, giving them no chance at fighting for this win. But Acura and BMW weren't the only GTP manufacturers suffering some issues. The 01 Chip Ganassi Cadillac actually had to retire from the race due to a powertrain issue. This was devastating for Chip Ganassi Racing, who brought one of the best lineups to the GTP category and had a very strong chance at taking the overall win. Across this entire night cycle at Daytona, it became clear in GTP that Porsche had the upper hand. In fact, across the entire event, Porsche didn't encounter a single major reliability issue with the 963. And remember, the German auto manufacturer had 4 cars out on track, 2 factory entries from Penske and 2 customer entries. Porsche had the most cars out of any manufacturer out on track, which is seriously impressive if you ask me. As daybreak arose across the Daytona International Speedway, it became a fight for the overall lead between 3 GTP entries. The 2 Penske entries, the number 6 and number 7, and the number 31 Whelen Engineering Cadillac from Action Express Racing. Meanwhile, a great battle was happening for the overall lead in LMP2. Connor Zilic in the number 18 Era Motorsports entry was defending against Jakobsen in the number 04 CrowdStrike APR car. Jakobsen tried many times to get past Zilic, but the American racer successfully defended against the 04 CrowdStrike LMP2. Very respectful racing from these drivers, and as the race progressed, these 2 cars would continue to fight for the lead to see who would win in LMP2. With around 4 hours remaining, another battle took place that showcased the beauty of endurance racing. So you had one excellent battle going on for the GTD lead, another battle going on for the GTD Pro lead, and a third battle going on in the GTP ranks for 5th position between the 2 customer Porsches from Proton Competition and JDC Miller Motorsports. Now, speaking of the GT categories, you might be wondering, how were those brand new Ford Mustang GT3s getting along? Now, I gotta be honest, it wasn't a perfect debut for the Ford Mustang GT3s in IMSA competition. Although they were somewhat competitive, there were even a few times when the Mustang GT3s led in the GTD Pro class. But like I said, it wasn't a perfect debut. Remember, these cars are brand new to IMSA competition, so this was definitely a learning race. 2 of the 3 Fords ended up retiring from the event. The 65 car retired due to some sort of mechanical issue in the closing laps of this event. The car that finished was the number 64 Multimatic entry, but that car was hit with some issues as well, mainly diffuser damage from a collision in the night from the number 4 Corvette entry from Pratt Miller Motorsports. BOP, or balance of performance, was also a significant factor that affected the Ford entries in a negative way, so that didn't help their race either. But we knew Daytona was going to be a learning race for Ford. After all, this was the first event that the Mustang GT3 participated in, so hopefully for its IMSA competition, the Mustang GT3 goes a lot better at the 12 Hours of Sebring. Let's move things back to the GTP category. And as things moved along into the final few hours, I think it became a 2-horse race between the number 7 Porsche and the number 31 Cadillac. The number 6 Porsche unfortunately was handed a few penalties, and the car went off on cold tires at the International Horseshoe, which set the entry back a bit. Cadillac and Porsche continued to trade positions for the overall lead of Daytona, but with the warmer conditions starting to come into play, Cadillac now had the advantage. It was very similar to the day before, when Cadillac showed incredible pace during the daytime hours, so it seemed Cadillac now had the upper hand over Porsche. At this point in the race, the number 31 Cadillac was looking very likely to win the event, especially in the hands of Tom Blomqvist, a very talented and experienced racer who had won the last 2 Rolex 24s at Daytona with MSR Acura. After a round of pit stops, the Whelen Cadillac was right behind the Penske Porsche as they headed down into the first turn of Daytona. Blomqvist was able to go side by side with Nasr, and actually both cars split the GT traffic, and Blomqvist went around the outside to take the lead of Daytona. This was a very reminiscent move by Blomqvist to Hakkinen and Schumacher's battle at the F1 Belgian Grand Prix in 2000. After this sensational move, Blomqvist was able to pull a gap to Nasr in the number 7 Porsche by a few seconds and give Cadillac a better opportunity at winning this race. But then things changed with just an hour to go in this race, as a fire broke out on the number 12 Vassar Sullivan Lexus entry. Thankfully, the driver Parker Thompson was able to get out of the car unhurt. But this resulted in the organizers introducing a full course yellow, which would bunch the field up and give Porsche a better opportunity at taking this win. Under this full course yellow, Porsche's number 7 car and Cadillac's number 31 car pit at the same time for their final pit stop before the end of this event. But these pit stops actually resulted in a lead change, as the number 7 Porsche was actually able to just barely jump ahead of the number 31 Cadillac, which had been leading the race beforehand. As the full course yellow disappeared, it became a sprint to the finish, with around 30 minutes to go to decide who would win this historic 24-hour event, Porsche or Cadillac. Felipe Nasr in the number 7 Porsche led the field away from a charging Tom Blomqvist in the number 31 Cadillac, who was chasing his 3rd win in a row at Daytona. The fact is, the 2 cars were very quick, and the 2 drivers had a lot of talent and experience. What would happen would be that the Cadillac would be very quick, especially in the corners, but on the straight, it wouldn't be able to get past that Porsche Penske. Felipe Nasr in the number 7 car was just too quick down those straights. But even though the 963 was quick in a straight line, Nasr would still have to pull off an almost perfect stint to keep Blomqvist behind for over 30 minutes and cross the line first for Porsche. And mind you, that number 31 Cadillac was just under a second behind for the majority of the time. But Felipe Nasr miraculously prevailed. In the final few laps, Nasr also dealt with the slower GT traffic very well. Nasr tactically maneuvered his Porsche 963 around the slower traffic, and this resulted in him growing the gap to the Cadillac in those final few laps. Now, you won't hear me say this that often when doing these race reviews, but this finish to Daytona was very confusing, because the checkered flag was put out just before the cars crossed the line. IMSA admitted that this was a mistake, and I'm going to read you now the statement that they put out. Due to an officiating error in race control, IMSA inadvertently announced and subsequently displayed the white flag with under 3 minutes remaining in the race. At the end of the lap, the race-leading number 7 GTP car then received the checker flag with 1 minute and 35 seconds still remaining, ended the race short of the planned 24 hours by effectively 1 lap. And the statement continued on to say, under Article 49 of the IMSA sporting regulations, the result was still valid. So even though there was a confusing finish, Porsche Penske Motorsport crossed the line to win the Rolex 24 at Daytona, with Felipe Nasr successfully holding off Tom Blomqvist in the leading number 7 Porsche Penske. Second place went to Cadillac and their Whelen Engineering entry. Action Express Racing definitely deserved this win. They showed incredible pace across the entire event. But sometimes that's just how racing goes. Third place overall went to the number 40 Acura, as Wayne Taylor Racing pushed to finish ahead of the number 6 Penske car and the 2 customer Porsches. The win in LMP2 went to the number 18 Era Motorsports Oreca 07 entry. This team beat the opposition in that category to take their very first win at the Rolex 24. Victory in the GTD Pro class went to Ferrari, Risi Competizione and their number 62 296 GT3 took Ferrari to victory at Daytona for the very first time since 2014, when a Ferrari 458 took victory in the GTD class thanks to Level 5 Motorsport. And finally, the win in GTD in 2024 went to Windward Racing. Their number 57 Mercedes AMG GT3 went strong across the entire event, taking Windward Racing to victory lane at the Rolex 24 for the first time since 2021. Overall though, the big talking point coming out of this race was that Porsche Penske Motorsport had taken victory at the Rolex 24. The drivers of the number 7 Porsche Penske 963, including Matt Campbell, Felipe Nasr, Dane Cameron, and Joseph Newgarden, along with the whole team, took Porsche back to victory lane overall at Daytona for the first time since 2003, and also gave the German auto manufacturer their 19th overall win at this circuit. This win also marked the second time that the captain Roger Penske took overall victory at the Rolex 24, otherwise known as the 24 Hours of Daytona, the first coming all the way back in 1969. A truly remarkable achievement for everybody involved in this project that sees Porsche return to winning in 24-hour endurance racing. So that's my recap of the major things that happened at the 2024 edition of the Rolex 24 at Daytona. What did you think about the 62nd edition of the Daytona 24? Well, let me know all your thoughts down in the comments. Thanks for watching this video. If you haven't subscribed yet, I highly suggest you do so, considering I make endurance racing content mainly on WEC and IMSA every single week. And if you want to see another video, check out the options on the screen. So for now, that's it from me. I'll see you all in the next video.